a momentous occurrence happened in Nigerian sports. In a significant move aimed at streamlining Nigeria's sports administration, President Bola Tinubu and the Federal Executive Council have announced the dissolution of the Ministry of Sports Development. Now, the decision was disclosed in a tweet by the President's Special Advisor on Information and Strategy, Bayo Onanuga, on Wednesday, following the Federal Executive Council meeting in Abuja on Tuesday. And according to the statement, the functions and responsibilities previously overseen by the Ministry of Sports Development will now be transferred to the newly formed National Sports Commission. Now, the NSC will take full control of sports-related activities across the country moving forward, and the restructuring is expected to enhance the efficiency and focus of the nation's sports administration as the NSC takes on the primary responsibility of overseeing sports development and promotion of sports nationwide. Meanwhile, the chairman of the House Committee on Sports, Honourable Kabiru Amadu, has praised President Bola Tinubu for abolishing the Ministry of Sports Development and establishing the National Sports Commission. Amadu, who represents the Guzo Safe constituency in Zamfara State, emphasized that this decision is a significant step towards effective growth in the sports sector and has the full support of the National Assembly. Well, gentlemen, in the words of a certain Nigerian musician, I never saw this one coming. But then again, if you look at what happened at the just concluded, the Paris Olympic Games that took place earlier this year, there are some who believe that it was inevitable. Tony?
It was coming. It was already there in the works. It was, it's been brewing quietly. A lot of work had been going on behind the scene around the return of the National Sports Commission that dominated discourse on some platforms as well. So it was in the works. We just didn't know what adaptation of the National Sports Commission will be getting. Because before now, we've had different adaptations of the National Sports Commission. We've had partial scrapping of the commission. We've had quota abolishing of the commission. We've had different adaptations of corruption.
Yeah, if my producer, my director would help me, we can't put that on the screen. It's had different names over the years. Of course, the National Sports Commission is the apex body responsible for regulating sports in the country. Its origin dates far back as 1910 with the creation of the Empire Day competition and the National Sports Commission, which functioned under the Federal Ministry of Labour. That was then, and this was replaced by the National Sports Commission.
It was National Sports Council.
National Sports Council, exactly. But let's just show you the different names that it has taken over the last few years. It used to be this Ministry of Youth and Sports, Ministry of Sports Development, and there you see National Sports Council, like you said, between 1962 and 1963, was Ministry of Labour, National Sports Commission, way back in 71-75, Ministry of Social Development, Youth and Sports, Ministry of Youth and Culture, Ministry of Youth, Sports and Culture, Ministry of Youth and Sports. It's been named everything apart from the Ministry of Tunde Koiki. But
and then we had Ministry of Youth and Sports and Youth Development, and then the last one, Ministry of Sports Development. But I was talking about the adaptation of the National Sports Commission. Ideally, a commission is supposed to be having a chairman, a board, a director general, and directors. But we've had different adaptations in Nigeria. Under Bolaji Abdullahi, we had the National Sports Commission, and we had the minister. Which
was weird, actually.
Which was weird, because once the National Sports Commission is in place, it means
what exactly does
you don't need the Minister of Sports, but it was combining sports and youth. So we had that adaptation. Then we had Solomon Dalong as well as Minister of Sports and Youth Development. And then we had, I think, Yakmut and Elegbeleye at some point as DG National Sports Commission. So those were working together. That was the adaptation. That was the corruption, as I said, of the two, merging the two together. But under what President Bola Tinubu announced today, the Ministry of Sports Development
ceases to exist.
Is completely off. So the body that will now be in charge of sports in Nigeria, the only body that will be in charge of sports in Nigeria is the National Sports Commission.
Okay. Now, we have discussed that a lot of people have actually advocated for the National Sports Commission model to come back, basically because of the fact that the key ingredient of it is the tenure of the board and especially the chief executive officers, the chairman and the DG, because they will be expected to have a certain term, a specific term in terms of in office, whether it's 4 years or 5 years or 6 years, we don't know. But that is supposed to negate the issue of changing ministers at whim by the presidency or the Federal Executive Committee. Is this a possibility right now?
Well, you know, when this news broke, I've learnt in my over 50 years in this country not to be too sad
not to
or
be
be
too
happy. Too happy. Too sad not to condemn, too happy not to praise. You know, so as the minutes tickled down, we started hearing that some appointment have been made. But like you said, ideally, Tony alluded to some part of this arrangement. Ideally, there's supposed to be a chairman of the board, the DG, and these two positions are supposed to be tenured. They're supposed to sign a contract, maybe 4 years, 5 years, 7 years, as the case may be. And for me, they should be technocrats. They should be people who can, encourage the private sector to key into sports, because we have all agreed here that government alone cannot do it. Government right now are battling banditry, the economic issues, insecurity, fuel problems here and there. We need some characters who could encourage the private sector involvement in sports.
Yeah, and speaking of technocrats, the new, I beg your pardon, the chairman of the National Sports Commission is none other than the man that all three of us know quite well, Shehu Diko, former vice president of the Nigerian Football Federation, and actually a former CAF committee member as well. Yeah. He is the new chairman of the National Sports Commission. Would you say he's a technocrat?
Well, yeah, I mean, he's been in football.
Football administration.
Yeah, he's been in football administration.
This goes way beyond football.
Let me say a few things about Shehu Diko, mostly positive. If you've listened to him, you know he's sound. He has ideas. He has ideas. He's very bright. He knows what he wants to do. If he convinces, I mean, I was told that there was a presentation to the presidency about the National Sports Commission that he made, and if you give him an opportunity to talk to you about something, he will talk your barbaric off you. He will win you over. So he has the ideas. That's excellent. And that's what we want. We want somebody with ideas. But it's a different thing.
So you remember a few years ago when he actually ran for NFF president, his manifesto was actually adjudged to be the best. PowerPoint slides, everything it was beautiful.
If you know him, ideas are second. I mean, they come to him
naturally.
But having ideas is one thing.
Implementing them.
Being able to bring your ideas out in a complex environment that is Nigeria and make them work
is another thing.
Different thing altogether.
Let me just stop you there, because we have two guests who are joining us live via Zoom. One of them is a man who is well known across Nigeria and beyond, across Africa as well. He's the project director of the Sports Apprentice. He's joining us from Johannesburg, South Africa. Emeka Enyadike. He joins us now. And there's also Dr. Ademola Are, who is the president of the Nigeria Rugby Federation. He joins us as well. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us tonight on Game On. Mr. Enyadike, I have to come to you first. Was this a surprise for you, the appointment of Shehu Diko? Did you see this one coming?
No, to be quite honest, I wouldn't say I saw it coming, but I must say that it is a good development, because I think we need to move away from the structure that we have, which is more leaning towards more political, and hopefully move towards a lot more pragmatic. How would I put it now? A lot more private sector-driven structures, but it would then mean that we need to bring in technocrats. We need to change the structure in such a way that it's not so much dependent on civil servants. But the one point I want to highlight is that we see with the telecommunications and Ministry of Communications and what we have there with the National Commission that we have, that's kind of midwives that environment. That's what the sports industry needs very badly. And I think it's a good step. What I don't know is what the legal frameworks around this are, or if we're just going to have a change of name and it's just the Ministry of Sports masquerading as the National Sports Commission. So we've seen this before with Nigeria. It's not the first time. I mean, earlier in the show, you alluded to the list. But if I go back, some of us are old enough to remember when we had Isaac Akioye and Sunday Dankaro in those positions. That was when sports in Nigeria really thrived, because we had proper sports people running the show. So with the military, changing back to the ministry, and then subsequently we have this confusion where there's ministry, there's National Sports Commission. We have a scenario where it sounds like it's a good idea, but if it's just going to be a change of name from the sports ministry, then we need to know more, because otherwise it's not. I don't know if we should be celebrating immediately, but I think that personally it's a good idea.
Basically, it will seem some cosmetic, but I like exactly what you said regarding telecommunications. We used to have a Ministry of Telecommunications in the past, but until we moved to the national, I think the Nigerian Communications Commission, that was when we really saw a change in Nigeria's telecommunications space to what we have today. But let me come to you, Dr. Ari. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. You are the president of the Nigerian Rugby Federation, one of the, key partners with the Ministry of Sports Development of the past. Were you surprised by this?
And Dr. Ari is a seasoned civil servant.
Oh, exactly. So you
can explain all of this to us. Yeah.
So you can you are best placed to navigate how this is supposed to work. But were you surprised by this? And did you think that maybe the fallout of Nigeria's woeful participation at the last Olympic Games contributed to this?
Yeah, thank you very much. I believe that the major stakeholders actually saw this coming. Right from the time of the last time of the former Honourable Minister, Sunday Dare, it has been works in the pipeline, and it's a thing of joy that is coming to pass at this particular moment. The blatant failure at Paris 2024 actually added fuel to this, and the general downturn of the sports development in the country, and the outcry, the outpour from major stakeholders have actually accelerated the passing of this particular policy. It's a good thing in the right direction. Like somebody said, we only hope it's not going to be just change of name for the sake of it. The most important thing, I believe, in any organization is sound leadership. And from what we've heard from everybody that I've spoken so far, Malam Shehu Diko, I believe, have what it takes. He's not a novice in this business of sports, especially when it comes to the national fora like this and the international fora. With a good leadership, Nigeria can go places. I will tell you straight away that we can hit the ground running. There are basic programs that we need to start doing immediately. One, we need to go back and befriend the private sector. We need to look at the issues why the private sector is no longer romancing our sports ministry in the past. We were together in the past. Why did they leave us? So we need to look into that and bring back the private sector. It is very important. Government alone cannot fund sports programs, growth, development. Is it at the elite level or at the grassroots level? The government cannot do it alone. And I believe with his past experience in football administration, Malam Diko can definitely bring about this. Also, he needs to look at grassroots sports development. That is very germane to whatever thing we are doing in this country today. Without grassroots sports development, we'll just be beating about the bush, relying on foreign athletes for us to execute our programs. and then the funding of elite programs. All the federations are there. The federations are expected to carry out the policies of the National Sports Commission. And like somebody said, we need the recruitment of more professionals to come into National Sports Commission. This is a very, very big opportunity to recruit in partnership with the other government agencies that needs to be partnered with to ensure that we have the right people at the right places. It is very, very important. Without doing this, we will just go back to what has been happening before.
But, Doctor,
when you look at...
Dr. Are,
yeah.
Yeah, you know,
yes, sir.
It's a privilege to listen to you, listen to Emeka Nyadike, who have been very experienced in all of this administration and all of that. Particularly you, Dr. Are, because I worked with you when I was working with the former minister, Sunday Dare. And as you said, the National Sports Commission was in the pipeline all along. But I want to ask a question, at least for those who are following and for those of us who want to be educated. How do we find people in the present setup of the Federal Ministry of Sports and adapt them into what we are trying to build for the National Sports Commission? We've not seen what the framework will be for the bill that was passed or that was signed that is now leading to what we have now. But from your experience, what are we supposed to build on? What's the framework? What's the structure like? Who can we bring on board? And then who can we throw out in a bid to have a National Sports Commission that we will be proud of?
Yeah, thank you very much. When you have a National Sports Commission, the structure must be in place. You have a chairman, there should be a director general, and possibly we should have executive directors. And down the line, we will now have senior officers, sports officers, manning the various departments, the divisions, and the units. We have them in the ministry presently. But you see, if you are in a situation where if you sell your household in peanuts, you cannot buy them again when you have all the money in the world. We have the ministry staff that can deliver. It is leadership, like I said. If you have the right leadership, then everything will fall in place. For example, I am supposed to be, if, for example, as your chairman or as your DG or as your director, I resume work at 8 o'clock, 8:30, and you, my staff, you are coming to work at 10 o'clock, I'll give you the boots. You must follow the right steps. We already have the structure on ground, we have the guidelines, and by the time the federal government releases the document to guide the National Sports Commission, then whoever that is called upon must fall in line to do the needful. We have what it takes, for God's sake, in this country to be one of the best in the world. We have the athletes. I will agree if you are saying, well, we need more facilities. Yes, life itself is dynamic. We need to improve more on whatever thing we have. But I can tell you, with Malam Shehu Diko, and with the support of the professionals, and when I say professionals now, I don't want to take that hook, line, and sinker. If, for example, you have been in sports for a very long time, you know what it takes. You've been with them doing all sorts of things, and you know the right thing. My brother, you're already a professional in the practical terms. It is not just going to school that makes you a better person. It is the actual performance, the practicalization of what you have learned. That is what will make you a professional. To me, all right, in quote.
All right.
Not just studying physical and health education.
All right, Emeka, I want you to give me a clearer perspective into what Dr. Are said. I'm particularly concerned about the private sector. He said the private sector used to romance. That was the word he used. Used to romance.
Used to be together
with our sports, but we are having issues. The basketball league is without a sponsor. AFN had issues. You know, the federation was factionalized. You know, how do we move forward now that we have the sports commission? What are the things that we should put in place to ensure that the private sector, you know, the corporate bodies now begin to identify with our sports? Because I know that this is quite your area. You are a private sector man. what are the tips that you can give us to help us back to the glory days?
For me, there are three key ingredients. Number one is corporate governance. We need to put in place a proper adequate structures, because in sports in Nigeria just doesn't take corporate governance seriously. People do not bother about accountability. And that takes me to the second one, which is professionalism in terms of how you deal with the private sector and the corporate bodies. In Nigeria, the sports ministry, the sports federations, clubs and all, they just write letters to sponsors, and then they expect that they will get the sponsors. There's never an attempt to find out what the sponsors actually need, because at the end of the day, the private sector is not. They have to have this mentality where they understand that nobody is doing anybody a favor. If you're looking for a sponsor, the sponsor is also looking for something. So how do you find that thing that the private sector is looking for? And if you take it a bit deeper, you look at brands, there has to be something, two keywords, strategic fit. And if you look at globally where you have the sponsorships, whether it's Coca-Cola sponsoring the World Cup or Adidas or some of those brands, they only come in there and they have values that they derive from it. And Nigeria has all the ingredients that we require for sponsors to take us seriously. But because we don't have good corporate governance, we also don't have a deep understanding of what sponsors want. Because sometimes, the brands have what they have planned to do and where they want, which sports that they want to tackle. And because we don't provide them with the necessary tools to fulfill their goals, when there is a foreign sports body that provides them that, they rather go there and then you start blaming them and say, oh, they're operating in Nigeria and sponsoring something that is foreign. The third one is the fact of us not employing people who are knowledgeable. And by that, Dr. Arey mentioned something earlier. And I'll tell you, this is one big fault I've always had with Nigerian National Sports Commission of old, and also the sports ministry. When they advertise for position, they usually will tell you, we want people who have degrees in physical education. Sports is an industry. It's probably the sixth largest industry, the sixth largest employer, and the sixth largest business industry in the world today. But in Nigeria, we still take it as if it's some kind of social function. For the scale and for the scope, the size of Nigeria, the quality of athletes that we produce, the fan base that we have, we need to have a proper industry. And that's why there has been an attempt to come up with a sports industry policy, which somehow operates like the sports ministry is not interested in it, because everybody gets some funding from government. And one example I always give is that the budget of the sports ministry in Nigeria, if you convert it from naira to dollars, you'll find that it's probably not more than $20 million. Meanwhile, the last team, the team that wins the playoffs and qualifies for the Premier League, there's about £150 million every year. That's how you look at it, and then you understand that we are not serious. We are not taking this entire business of sports seriously. And then the final thing that I will say is that globally today, in most sports organizations, they employ people who have gone to school to study sports management, sports technology, sports law, and all of those things. The reason being that, in Europe, the European Union has certain concessions that they make for what they call the specificity of sports. So even when they make policies, they realize that sports has certain peculiarities, and that's the reason why when there's a legal matter, it ends up in the Court of Arbitration for sports. And the reason being that there is a specific way in which sports cases are dealt with, and you need to understand that. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you must go have the degree. You need to learn. So whether you have the degree in Europe, if you don't have a degree in a sports discipline, they won't employ you in a sports organization, whether it's a club or whatever. Nobody's employing anybody with physical education. Physical education people end up as teachers in either primary, secondary, or universities, where the ones that have PhDs and they go into research about all of that. There's specialization around sports performance. Everything is scientific today, and then technology drives everything from training of athletes, preparation of athletes, injuries, and most importantly, things like broadcasts, things like media. All of us we work in the media. If you look at it today, I mean, Onye and Tony, we used to write for newspapers in the past. These days, if you don't know how to write or create a business for the internet, you will be out of job.
Absolutely.
So that's how it has been. The entire sports ecosystem, has evolved to the extent where everything today that we know about sports has become a business and has become specialized. And I'll give you an example. In Tel Aviv, in Israel, they've created probably more than 30-40% of the sports technology that the world uses today. Wow. And that is a lot of business. They've created companies that have run into billions. We have a population of about 200 million. And we don't realize that is something that really, really works for us. Yeah. I mean, how many fans follow our Premier League teams? So we must go back and marry business with the sports.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that's the best way to land here on this particular part of the show. We'll be speaking with, of course, Emeka Nyadeke, who is the project director of the Sports Apprentice, and of course, Dr. Ademola Are, who is the president of the Nigeria Rugby Federation. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time and for your expertise tonight on this particular topic. But I think the key thing to take away from this is whoever are the people who will be joining Shehu Diko in the National Sports Commission, they must not be people with backgrounds in physical education. They must be seasoned sports management professionals, especially the position of the DG, who a lot of people believe is the key #1 salesman, someone who has a degree in business, sports management, someone who can sell the ideas of the National Sports Commission and also engage effectively and, of course, harmoniously with the private sector. Thank you so much for your time, gentlemen. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you very much.